My brother-in-law essayed me 7 years ago, and my family is not on my side. I, 33F, was essayed by my brother-in-law, who has a massive drinking problem, when I was 24. It happened less than 6 months after I had moved an hour away from my parents' house. It took me 8 years to tell my husband, whom I had been dating for 4 months when it happened. Once I told him, it started to explain a lot of weird behaviors, panic attacks when going to visit my family and night terrors being the two biggest issues. About a year ago, I told my parents everything that happened. My father was fairly silent. My mother tried to be understanding, but couldn't help herself with comments like, "Why didn't you tell us?" and make jokes about how messed up my childhood was when I said I had been in therapy. At the time, I explained to my parents the difficulty I was experiencing. I told them I needed their support to inform me if he's going to be around when I'm visiting. I explained how it has impacted me, preventing me from being around as often as I would like. My dad was quiet, and my mom carried on about how that shouldn't slow me down from visiting my family. Over the past year, neither of my parents has even broached this topic since the day I told them. If my brother-in-law is around at a family gathering, my dad pays attention and stays right by my side if he tries to talk to me. My mom, on the other hand, gives him more drinks when he shows up already intoxicated, and does things like setting an extra plate at family dinners just in case he shows up. It has been hurtful, and I haven't exactly felt supported by my family. My relationship with my sister has also deteriorated, although we were never super close to begin with, and she is still blissfully unaware of what her husband did to me. A few years ago, my mother announced to the family that she was officially giving me Thanksgiving to host, and since then, it has been a battle, and she tries to host every year. I finally put my foot down this year and said I won't come. I tried to explain to her how hurt I am and that I want to be in my own safe place. If my brother-in-law actually shows up, I'll feel empowered to finally confront him, but he usually avoids me ever since the incident, and the feeling is mutual. I got emotional while trying to say this, and my mother told me not to cry. I lost it and told her I was allowed to have emotions, and she was going to listen to them even if they made her uncomfortable. She was not happy with what I had to say to her and started swinging back with unrelated issues. I hung up on her because the conversation was going nowhere good. After I got into the fight with my mom, I felt empowered enough to confront my brother-in-law. We talked, and he tried to say he slightly remembered what he did to me, but wasn't sure because he was too hammered that night. I proceeded to give him every single detail that he refused to remember. I also told him I'm not looking to blow up my sister's life almost a decade later, but he needs to step up and be a better husband and father and also stop drinking. The next day, my mom told my sister about our fight. The main point of the argument was me not feeling supported around the man who essayed me. My sister doesn't know this part, so she thinks I'm arguing about hosting Thanksgiving just because I'm difficult. I received a long, nasty text from my sister for being rude to my mother. She carried on and called me a bad aunt for not being around my nephews enough and not spending more time with my family. I felt extremely hurt by that, especially since she didn't know the full story. I screenshotted the text and sent it to my brother-in-law so he has to at least see what I'm going through because of him. So, I've been attempting to protect my sister by not telling her this secret. Should I just spill the beans and let the cards fall where they may? Update 1. To clarify some comments, I have not been fine interacting with my brother-in-law. I experienced panic attacks from the beginning but didn't understand the reason because I thought I had successfully repressed it. It took a lot of therapy to figure out what was upsetting me and causing the panic attacks and night terrors. I am not comfortable leaving my sister and the kids in a situation like that. My sister has spent her entire life running face first into bad partners, physically, emotionally, and substance abusers. She doubles down when anyone expresses concern or tries to help her, usually making the problem substantially worse. I never want to see him again. The only time I have contacted him outside of family interactions since this happened was to confront him on Saturday and send a screenshot of my sister's nasty text. There have been no other texts, just 2 texts in the last 9 years. Funny that some suggest I should run to a therapist. I fired my last one for telling me I shouldn't address this situation at all. Right now, I'm doing the best I can with the tools I have. I foresee my sister accusing me of lying to hurt her in some way, then going no contact. I've tried broaching much less scandalous topics with her as gently as possible, and she has lost her ever-loving mind on me. She has terrible, unaddressed anxiety and is very emotionally volatile. It's pretty clear I need to tear the band-aid off. I've reached out to my dad and asked to talk to him without my mother around. I'm going to tell him that I'm going to tell my sister. I'm going to ask him to go to her house before I do this and take my nephews so they don't get exposed to the aftermath of the conversation. Update 2. I finally spoke to my dad. I told him about the ways my mother has recently hurt me by forcing interactions and telling half-truths. His rebuttal was that it was hurtful when I hung up on my mom over the weekend. Initially, he tried to talk me out of saying something to my sister by accusing me of being vindictive. I had to assert, and repeat, that what my brother-in-law did to me was a serious matter, and that I need to share the burden I've been carrying for the last decade. This was met with silence. He then mentioned he couldn't help until next week, but finally said he might be able to make things happen tonight, as my sister is currently at my parents' house. I'm waiting for a text from him to get the go-ahead to call my sister. There was definitely some gaslighting during the conversation, but he's offered to help, and it's the most support I've managed minus my husband, so I'll take what I can get. Update 3. I talked to my sister. I asked her not to interrupt me, even if she wanted to, and she respected it. She quietly listened as I told her what happened and began sobbing. The first words out of her mouth were that I would never have to see him again, he would never be welcome at mine or my parents' houses. She believed me 100%. She asked questions, including if he was intoxicated when it happened. She acknowledged that the answer didn't really matter and it was still inexcusable. This happened when we were all on a trip together visiting my grandparents. She didn't even remember going on the trip, so I walked her back to that weekend, and we talked through the details. She also shared that brother-in-law was SA'd by an aunt, who also had a massive drinking problem, when he was younger. I told her I called and confronted him on Saturday. She asked about our conversation, and I told her everything. She asked me if he admitted to remembering it, and said she doesn't allow him to drink in the house anymore because he zones out and doesn't remember what he does. She got angry, but not at me. She went on to repeat a few times that she's my big sister, and her job is to protect me. I could feel her internalizing a lot of pain. I explained that I do love my family, but the panic attacks and night terrors keep me away so I can protect myself. She told me she's been very angry at me for years for not being around, and knowing this changes things. She said had she known, I never would have had to be around him all these years. She told me that she wished I had told her at the time. They didn't have any kids when this happened. She said she most likely would have divorced him. She doesn't see divorce as an option now because of the kids. I explained that I didn't have the tools in my toolbox at the time, and that's what I've been working on. I told her that until a year ago, I couldn't stand in an empty room and say what happened to me out loud or even write it on a piece of paper. She just cried a lot with me and it all seemed serendipitous. If talking to her made me realize anything for sure, it's that my parents are messed up. I'm going to text my sister this morning. Considering the way she handled it, I think reaching out and trying to heal our relationship will be a good move. I also don't want my parents to do to her what they did to me. When the dust settles some, I'm going to talk to my sister about all the unhealthy BS from my parents. I think if we can stand up to their enabling behaviors together, everyone will be better off. I might reach out to my dad today, but I'm undecided. I will definitely not be reaching out to my mother. I'm going to go extremely low contact with her for the next few months. Both of my parents have some apologizing to do before they'll be allowed back into my good graces. I'm happy I did everything I did yesterday without speaking a word to my mother. I know this is just the start in a lot of ways. Yesterday was like reaching the peak of Mount Everest. I still have to get down the mountain, but the worst of it is over.